I've actually got a lieutenant I worked for and with for a while. That was, he said it great. He's like, well, whenever people say, oh man, it must be nice to get paid to sleep. He's like, no, I don't get paid to sleep. I get paid to wake up. I get paid to wake up.
Hey, it's Steve Oakers, and this is I'm Just Steve, the podcast number 13, which Jason is very excited about.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13, because his daughter's into 13.
Swifty.
A Swifty.
We're a Swifty family.
We're a Swifty. Did you go to the concerts?
No.
You haven't made a concert?
I wanted to, but I couldn't pull the trigger. We had 4 people, and we're like $2,500 a ticket.
Yeah, that's a minute. Yeah.
Do you want to go on a Disney cruise or go see Swift? What do you want to do?
Did they choose the Disney cruise?
Well, I didn't give them the option, so just more of a internal thing.
Okay, all right. I understand. So I'm Just Steve. We ultimately are excited to hang out with Jason. Jason's experience and just background is very different than some of the guests that we've had, and I'll let you explain what that is. But ultimately, it came out of my need to understand fire, and you being a firefighter. I can't call you a fireman. We had that conversation, which I appreciate, sort of thinking through that, right? Sure. Sometimes you're just ingrained in what you say, and it's like, wait, yeah, that is insensitive, isn't it? Like, I need to think through that a little bit. So, Palisades fires, I call them Palisades, I'm assuming, but there was multiple fires in that same region of California. It feels like a long time ago, but that was just a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
That was January, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how in your brain or in society something happens that's just so monstrous and feels like it's part of our ethos for a period of time, and then it's just not anymore. Obviously, it is for them. They're in the heart of it. And so, so Jason, can you help the audience understand who you are, like who's in front of them, and
absolutely.
Like your background a little bit?
Yeah, so I think I said it to someone last night. We were at one of my daughter's basketball games, and it was, I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. Because my background has been, I worked for Apple for just over a decade, and then got into so I managed the retail store in Grand Rapids, and then I got into B2B sales with them as well as a business manager, and had a small team of business specialists that would go out and help support local businesses with technology. Then I got into running a business. So a buddy and I started a business in Grand Rapids. I eventually sold it to him, got out of it, wanted to keep the friendship. The friendship was more important than the business, right? So it was a good experience.
What business was that?
Linex of Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Now it's rebranded.
Yeah.
However, got out of that and into firefighting. And once I got into firefighting, it was almost like a, I guess, passion project of mine. So when I was in high school, I signed up for the Marines, and right before I was supposed to go to boot camp, blew out my knee. So I couldn't go.
Yeah.
And I was like, now what?
Yeah.
Accidentally found a job at Apple, stayed there for another decade.
Right.
And never really thought firefighting was in the cards because of the knee surgeries that I had.
Was that a childhood dream of doing something physical?
Yeah, like just doing something larger than myself.
Yeah.
And being able to support those around me in the community that I was in, whether it's the country or our community, right? And so I ran into one of my chiefs at Lowe's and randomly started asking him questions, just like, hey, how do you like being at the fire department? How do you like it?
Yeah.
Is that something, are you guys hiring? Can I get a job? And this was 8 years ago.
Okay.
And that turned into a, holy crap, I love this. And over the course of years, our department started growing, and I had an opportunity to go full-time with them, went full-time, did that for the better part of 2 years. And more recently, last summer, stepped down to part-time to kind of, there's a lot that got in, I think, the way of my schedule in my family life.
Yeah.
And I could see that, and I had the opportunity and the ability to be able to go back to a part-time basis with the fire department.
Yeah.
But the schedule was very difficult for me to be as involved with my children's life and my wife's life and just our family life that I wanted to. So also got a real estate license.
Yeah.
Just help out a little bit. I'm never going to have my name on a sign, right? Name's not going on a sign anywhere.
So, wife is Lindsay Dykstra. Lindsay Dykstra. Real estate agent, very successful, right?
Yeah.
She's
She
cranking.
loves what she does.
And so she's the front runner,
Yeah.
and you're good with that.
Yeah.
And you're just that supportive back end side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a little bit about my story.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the journey into, so how, like, I think even like the person that is thinking about that career, I think of my sons are 16. I don't think they really know what they want to do yet, right? I don't remember being 16 and knowing exactly what I wanted to do.
Sure.
But what is that process that so what department did you work for? And then
Sure.
what is that process of getting into working at a station?
Yeah. So I work for Plainfield Fire,
Okay.
Plainfield Fire Department, just in Grand Rapids. We cover Grand Rapids, Belmont, Comstock Park, Northview, Rockford, parts of all of those little areas, right? We've got 2 stations. The fire service is very unique in terms of no departments are the exact same.
Okay.
Right? So we're a combination department where we've got part-time firefighters and we've got full-time firefighters.
Yeah.
There's other departments like Grand Rapids where you've got full-time fire.
They're all full-time.
That's it. You've got other departments where it's like, okay, you're only part-time.
Yeah.
Or you're only paid on call. Or
I was going to say, like volunteer / on call, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then different segments of the country have different types of departments as well.
Is that just based on need?
Yeah.
Then, typically?
Yeah. A lot of it is call volume.
Okay.
Right. So like last month, our department had just over 250 calls.
Okay.
And 150 of them were medical calls, right? So anytime someone calls 911 and has either a medical need or a rescue of some sort that needs to happen, or maybe like a smoke alarm's going off, we get dispatched to that. So
yeah, I didn't realize that until even just a couple of years ago that like the firefighters go to every 911 call basically, unless it's police.
Sure.
But even you go to a lot of those, right? So
yeah,
that was surprising to me to see how active you are. You'd think of the firefighter going to the fire, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, like they're just hanging out, and then like, yeah, maybe once a night a fire happens, or like you don't think of like, and then you see you on the side of the road and you're like, oh, they're the ones that are sleeping up the mess. Like,
yes.
Yeah,
we're going to go clean up the road after the accident.
Clean up the road after the accident. Like,
but
how involved you are in each of those calls.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I loved about it is, right. So like, I've got ADHD.
Okay.
And the sheer fact of not knowing what's going to happen today, I loved it.
Yeah.
Right? You get the tones that go off and you don't know where you're going, right?
You're just hopping in the truck and...
I mean, you do as soon as they start letting you know, our dispatcher is going to let us know as soon as the tones drop, but the tones drop, so you get the immediate adrenaline rush, right? Yeah. And then it's, hey, you've got sweet old Betty who fell down and bonked her head and now she's super dizzy and doesn't know where she's at.
Right.
Or it's, hey, you've got commercial building and smoke's rolling out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen today.
Right.
So it was.
How do you get out of the adrenaline dump then? Like I like you just talked about going back to part-time. I would think that would be such a high that you would struggle not to stay on.
Yeah.
Like I just think of it like,
and it is
this is no comparison at all. It's even dumb that I'm bringing it up. But like, I'm the guy who loves to have everything in the car to fix stuff when people are like struggling.
Sure.
So I do have like the big first aid kit, not the small one, right?
Yeah.
But even yesterday, I was at the gas station and the guy's like, hey, do you have jumper cables? And like, I got excited that I could pull my jumper cables out because I just want to be that, like, kind of that ADD, but it's like, oh, I can be a hero to this one person today. But that feeling, if you're doing 1,000 times more in that adrenaline jump than just getting out jumper cables, right? And helping the guy. How does that, like, I'd love to talk about that mental health side, because I know that you were such involved in that, in a committee, it sounds like. But how does that, I can't imagine even going home after a day like that. And how do you shut off to be with children, right? And just be able to sit at a basketball game. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's honestly one of the biggest challenges that is facing the fire service as a whole, is just the mental health crisis that is either, shielded by some or blinded intentionally by others.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of departments. I'm fortunate to be at a department where our leadership is very aware that this is an issue with some people.
Has it become an issue because it's talked about now, or was it like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think it's always been an issue, but I think
it's
as
time to address it.
society's kind of maturing in their ability to look at mental health as an actual problem,
physical problem.
Yeah. Like this is a problem and we're willing to address it, and we're taking the macho, oh, just suck it up and deal with it away.
Yeah.
Some of us are. And really being able to go through it and look at what programs do we have in place? What can we offer every single employee, right? So we have for the longest time been great at objectively reviewing our people, right? So say I've got a job to do. I'm a firefighter and I need to get off of this truck and pull a hose line out to that front door and get water onto that fire within X amount of seconds, right? Minutes.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. We can objectively look at things like that, the tasks that you have to do. What is harder to do is to subjectively look at their performance and things within themselves. And that's kind of where I think we're taking it a little bit further, at least at Plainfield. We're taking it a little bit further and saying, what does your ability to deal with a problem look like? Like, what is your problem solving ability? What is your ability to deal with ambiguity? And what does your customer focus look like? Those are a little bit more subjective based on the leadership that's observing your behaviors.
Yeah.
And we're doing a much better job of saying, how can we support you to become a better employee and to become a better human by looking at all of these traits and characteristics, and help with some professional development and personal development as well, versus just objectively looking at the tasks that you're challenged with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. It almost sounds similar to the idea, like which we've talked about a lot. I've had quite a few business coaches on, of almost finding their personality profile or their background and like who they are, and then trying to say, okay, this firefighter is really good at the initial contact because they're really good with people, where this one's really tactful and knows, like, here's the 5 steps to make sure that the scene is under control, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that part of that, like learning to say, like, oh, just because you're chief or you're whatever on the totem pole, you should just do this job?
Yeah. So historically, it was, hey, you're the new guy. You do these tasks.
Yeah.
You do this job. This is just what you do. But yes, no, we have gotten to a point where we're looking at things through that lens to really help people do what they're best at.
Yeah.
We recently, they had all of the employees have the opportunity to take a DISC assessment. And I know you're like,
I'm
DISC
like,
assessment, right?
Yeah,
you're like, firefighters amazing. Doing a DISC assessment? Why?
I think that's huge.
But there is so much to the teamwork dynamic, and the team dynamic, and understanding who it is
internally
that
to then service the customer, which is basically all of Plainfield Township, right?
Yeah.
Like that needs your help, right? And they want to interact with that person that's best served them. Not like, sometimes that can be the person that's been around the longest, but not always, right?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So how did the firefighters take, like, I just think of that, in real estate, that's become a pretty normal thing of like personality profiling and business coaches and that kind of thing. But in a world, like, I don't know. I just don't see that, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did were they all like, this is dumb? Like, why are you making us do this? Or were they like, oh, like, we get how this could make us, like, how does that?
Yeah.
Because again, I think of, and again, sorry, I'm stereotyping, but that ego or that driven nature for the adrenaline, for to fix the big issue, to stop and say, like, let me learn about myself.
Yeah.
Doesn't. They don't necessarily match
compute.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. No. So I mean, it initially, right?
Yeah.
When a lot of this stuff started rolling out a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. Some of it was like, why? Like, for what?
Yeah.
What are we doing this for? We just need to go train, see how much water we can get out of that hydrant, and let's go break some stuff, right? But No, I think it's so well received, especially when you think about the team dynamic.
Yeah.
And the shifts that we're working. Plainfield is on a modified Kelly schedule, which means if I work on Monday, I'm off on Tuesday, and then I work on Wednesday, and I'm off on Thursday, and then I work on Friday, and I'm off for 4 more days. So then I'll be off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I go right back into that rotation. So I'm on Wednesday, and that repeats. So every 3 out of 9 days, you're basically working.
And those are 24-hour shifts?
Yeah.
Those are 24-hour shifts, right?
With the exact same people.
Okay.
And so now you look at spending a third of your life with the same person and 2/3 of your life with your family. You're basically married, right? Like that's a unique relationship, and having a better understanding.
With heavy stress.
Yeah, with crazy stress, with a lot of expectations, with tons of things to do.
Yeah.
But now you start getting the tools to understand your partners, your teammates better, a DISC assessment, personality assessments, and start going through a lot of the personal development within the department.
Yeah.
It's so beneficial.
Have you seen a change?
Yes.
In your team or just in the department as a whole? Like you're
in the department as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, just the ability that I would have to, if I had an issue with you, my ability to walk up to you and say, hey, Steve, the way you handled yourself at this call, this is what I observed, and this is how I saw that play out.
Yeah.
Based off of the things that you did, and these are the things that I really need from you in the future. The reception of that now versus 4 or 5 years ago is drastically warmer, right?
Yeah.
It's a much warmer reception, and people are much more open to it because they know it's coming out of a place of let's make us better versus let me just look at you and tell you what you're doing wrong.
Right. Well, it's I always think of the DISC profile or any of the different. I mean, there's so many different ones that people use. It also is just a language, which is what you're talking. It's a language where we all it's an understandable language that we can talk through, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, based on what I know of you and you know of me, this is how I perceive that situation. And I know you perceive it a different way. So how do we come to an understanding on that situation that is the same, right?
Yeah.
That both helps us, right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is this now? Are you pulling that? Are you creating that, or like as your department, or is there a service that provides that for firefighters nationally? Like where is that?
There may be a service that provides that nationally, but no, that's 100% culture.
Yeah.
Right. And that's internal culture that's been developed and has been developing for years.
That's amazing.
Within Plainfield. And nothing to say about what it was 10 years ago. I wasn't there 10 years ago, so I'm not fully sure. And I know as things grow and people retire and people come in, new faces,
right?
It really depends, especially as you get younger, right? Like you have to be able to flex with the people that are coming into your environment, even though, you've been there for 2 decades. I get it.
Right.
However, most of your team is half your age. Yeah. And so now we got to kind of figure out what can we do to make everybody play well together.
Well, and also, you've got 8 years in for them to lose, like, yes, you're part-time now, but for them to lose that experience, like, you got to create an environment that keeps you there, right? Like, because that's not easy to train a firefighter.
No, it's
right?
not. It's not easy, and it's not cheap.
No,
honestly. So like when I came on, you've got the fire academy, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going through the fire academy, and that's 6 months, and then after that, we're all EMTs as well at our department. So then you've got EMT class that you've got to go through to get your national EMT license. Yeah. And that whole process takes at least a year.
Yeah.
And then you've got onboarding and training, because it's not like I like to tell people the fire academy is basically enough information to keep you alive.
Yeah, it's boot camp.
It is, but it's enough information to keep you alive. Like, let's not let Jason die because he's going to go into his first fire.
Right.
Like, it's that much information. Then the rest of it, after you're done with the fire academy, is every single truck we have is unique to our department.
Yeah.
Every single hose load that we have, every hose size that we have, every cabinet that you open up, every tool that we have, everything's all unique to our department. So it's like now you're going through a bunch of training to figure out where everything's at. So
and how it works.
Yeah, and what it's for. And so if you know we're on a scene of something and I need somebody to grab me a 4 to 5 inch adapter for a hose, they know where it's at.
Right.
They're not
what's that?
What is that? What's that for? Where's that? You know, it's you. So once you're out of all of that, then you've got a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And then once you learn and identify where everything's at, we have specific ways that we like to train. And we have specific ways that we like to, you know, show up on scene. If we're first due, which means we're the first one on scene of a fire, we have specific tasks. If we're first due on a cardiac arrest where we're going to be doing CPR, we have specific tasks. That second truck that's rolling in has specific tasks to do and to accomplish, right? So it's once you get through all of the training, there's more training, and then once you get through that training, we continue training. We do training every single shift. Our goal is to do training at least once a shift and to at least go to the gym at least once a shift. Yeah. Right. And along with all of the other shift work that we have to get done. Right. Along with all of the other calls that we do. So it's typically, you know, the mentality sometimes for people is, well, it must be nice to be able to hang out and
for 24 hours.
Yeah, and wait for a call to come
3
in.
3 times, and then you get 4 days off.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a good job, right?
Yeah, and it is.
Right.
But I'll tell you that if I'm working on Monday and I'm off on Tuesday and then I'm back at it on Wednesday, if Monday I get 8 calls and 3 of them are spaced throughout the night, which is not uncommon, right? Where I'll get one at 11 o'clock at night, and then we'll get another one at 2, and then you get another one at 4. Yeah. Like, okay, cool. You got Tuesday off.
Yeah, but you
enjoy.
Yeah,
like have fun.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Especially in the summer when you got little kids and they're like, yeah, let's go do this stuff and let's go do these things. It's really difficult to balance that sometimes. Right. But it's also very rewarding to be able to do that. So you know, I've actually got a lieutenant I worked for and with for a while. That was he said it great. You know, he's like, well, you know, whenever people say, oh man, it must be nice to get paid to sleep. He's like, no, I don't get paid to sleep. I get paid to wake up. I get paid to wake up. I was like, that's fair.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So, this is it now system? Like, do you feel like you've created this system for the mental health, like creating a station or a department that has that as their ethos? Like, are you able, like, is that a package now that you guys feel like you've gotten your handle on?
Yeah, so we recently went through some leadership changes, right? Our former Chief McKellar, awesome dude. He's the one that saw a lot of potential in me and helped me get to a point where I was a full-time employee there, and love him dearly. He did a lot of great stuff while he was there, and now we've got a new chief, Chief Savoda. He is hard into the development, the professional development, looking at what can we do to better our employees, just in a professional standpoint, right? And so I think it's very unique to our department. And it is not a program that you could go through and subscribe to. Yeah. I know he does some other work outside of just our department to assist other departments in achieving similar results. Yeah. And it's been pretty awesome. Yeah. Right. And I've been able to partner with them on some of the stuff and work through some of that. So it's been pretty rewarding.
Huh. Okay. So now, like, let's show this, because this is, you know, I think there's only one other person, Wally, that we've had, but not typed out bullet points, Wally. This is dialed in. Is this from the Apple days that we? Like,
yeah, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you'd rather be prepared and have to just do this number if it's not needed.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, don't have those out on the table. But yeah, if you need some stats or some statistics,
I do want to hear.
I've got a fun sheet of statistics. Yeah, I mean,
because if you took the time, then they're important, right? And so I do want to hear those stats, and then I would love to talk about the balancing act of the profession to family life. in the mental health side. So
Yeah. So
give us the stats. Like what?
okay.
Okay.
Some
So that we
stats.
Can,
Do we want to go with positives? I didn't write any awesome positive stats. They're all sad.
No,
quite honestly.
I
Nearly 50% of firefighters, of career firefighters, report not feeling comfortable talking to their supervisor about mental health.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because of so many of the other ones, over 80% of firefighters have experienced a traumatic event on the job that affected their mental health.
Well, of course.
Right? I mean, duh. Especially when you're going to so many of the calls where you get a victim trapped inside of a burning car.
Right.
Like,
how does that not mentally affect you? Yeah, you just go home and you're fine the next day.
I mean, like you can occasionally think about it, and I feel like, and Lindsay's, bless her heart, she's told me for many years, she's like, I don't know how anyone could see the things that you guys do and not be affected by it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm one of the very fortunate ones where I haven't had the wake up at night because I'm reliving anything. Like I haven't had the difficulty sleeping at night because I've, run into things that are going through my head and like, man, we should have done this better. We should have done this better. It would have saved that person. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's been those calls where it's like, if only fill in the blank, this result may have been better. Right. And I've gone through those, but it's never kept me awake at night. It's never made me feel like.
How have you been able to not have it compared to others?
I don't know.
Is that just because Lindsay lets you release it, or is that just like a mental process that you go through?
I mean, I think some of it is a mental process that I go through where it's like, okay, I know in 300 years, 300 years from now, nobody's going to know who Jason Dykstra is.
Right.
I don't think. Right.
But we don't know.
Maybe not. Right. But when I look at just why am I so worried about so many of the things that I have little to no control over? I can't let that eat away at me. Right. Like, sure, you could do something different. Sure, you could. And maybe some of that stemmed from, my childhood. Right. So as a kid, I had a mom my mom got in a pretty severe car accident when I was young and had a lot of brain damage as a result. Has, had to learn how to redo everything all over again. Walk, talk, eat, drink.
How old were you?
7.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so like as a younger kid, my internal process was, I should have hugged her longer.
Yeah.
I should have just hugged her a little bit longer and she wouldn't have got into a car accident. Right. But then as I got older, I was like, what if I hugged her a little bit longer and she got killed?
Right.
Different story, right? So it's like if I'm constantly living in the I should have done something different to get a different result, that result might not be the one that I wanted.
You think that traumatic experience with your mom helped you shape mentally of like, okay, I can't sit in each of these moments. I've got to let them go because one moment this could have happened and the next moment this could have happened.
Yeah. Almost like a negative butterfly effect, right? Like where you changed something, but well, did you? It's worse.
Yeah. Yeah. By trying too hard to push it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 80%. So where does does departments have counselors on staff to deal with the 80%?
Yeah. Most of them. I mean, we do a really good job of providing resources, mental health resources. We also at our department try to do a really good job of making sure that everyone knows where that resource is. Yeah. And also once a year, you must call this resource, even if it's to like, hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's it. Right. But like just having that as an outlet and having somebody to chat through some stuff with if that's needed. But also I think as our culture, the culture at Plainfield, we do an after action review after most traumatic events or most traumatic calls. Yeah. Right. And so we'll chat through things. We'll discuss what went well, what didn't. And we'll constantly follow up with each other. Right. Like, so I've got a handful of people on our department that if I go to a really crappy call, I've got no less than 3 or 4 phone calls or text messages like, hey, how are you doing?
Wow.
Hey, how's everything?
Yeah.
Are you doing okay after that call?
Yeah.
And it's shocking because you would think that the stigma of like firefighters and the fire service
Right.
isn't, let's make sure we're okay.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that each other is doing well.
You would think it would just be the next, right? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, that was a big one. Well, that was a lot of adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dramatic, but that's what we do. Let's go do another one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Not a like, are you okay after that?
Yeah.
Process. Yeah, and not to have to take that. I mean, we take everything home, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, but to not have to take that home, be able to give that to someone else or say like, yeah, that was not okay, and I'm not okay. Can we talk about it for a couple minutes before I go in and hug my girls?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Right. Do you find? I don't think that's so. That's harder for men to do. I feel like women, it's just natural. Like they generally talk, right?
Yeah.
I think for dudes, we have a harder time of asking or telling for help, right?
Yeah.
We sort of struggle to have that. And I doing this podcast, I've noticed that, right? Because now more men will come up to me and be like, "Hey, I saw this dude on podcast. That was so cool. Like, this is happening," or that's like, it was like, "Oh wow!" Like you feel comfortable now opening up, and like, but that's not a natural thing, I think, for most. So to actually build a culture where it becomes natural is different, right? How do you maintain those relationships? Like, do you do the same, or how did you fester that to create? Like, I think for men that are listening, it's not easy to build male friendships.
Sure.
Right. Especially at our age where we're in the thick of raising children, building our careers, trying to keep everything going. So like male friendships, it's like I always used to look at it as like, okay, well, I'm not really into sports, so I don't really have good men friends because I'm not the dude that's going to sit and watch basketball. I know you're a sports guy,
sure.
But I'm just not, right? And so that was really tough for me for a while to be like, wait a minute, like, how do I interact with a dude if we're not talking about whatever the newest sport event that's going on?
Yeah.
I can act like I know, and maybe I'll like look through the news just to have a little tidbit, but I really don't care.
Yeah, sure.
But it was so how do you think men and our demographic and age group of young children and trying to grow, how do they build or retain that? You're just doing that naturally because of the things that are put in place at Plainfield, or you've been able to establish that outside of there too?
Well, I mean, I think so. It's two parts, right? At the fire department, it's way easier, right? Because when you may hear people refer to it as like a brotherhood or a sisterhood, or like these are my brothers and sisters alongside of me. And the reason we say that is when you're in a career department, you're spending a third of your time with them.
Yeah.
Like they are your brothers and your sisters. You are having that deep relationship with them. So just like you would be able to talk to your family members, your brothers or your sisters about anything that's going on and build and deepen those relationships, we're able to do that there as well. Outside of the department, it's a whole new thing, right? And so Lindsay and I have had this conversation before. She's like, "Man, these are really nice people. We could hang out." And I'm like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like I would love to have 3 or 4 more great friends. But when I look at like where I'm at right now in life and where we're at in life, and you're talking about juggling work and juggling family and juggling their schedules, it's hard to be almost selfish for yourself and say, I want to take time for me to go and do things without feeling guilty that I'm not going to be at my kid's soccer practice, or I'm not going to be at your dance competition this weekend, or whatever it is. Do I want to go mountain biking with Steve, or do I want to go to Anna's soccer game?
Right.
And so there is that fine line as well. If I want to go through and build and deepen those relationships, there have been some that like I've met, whether it's at school pickup, right? And some of it is, if you're really struggling and really want to have those deeper relationships, I've never been weirded out by anyone that just comes up to me and is like, hey, what's the coolest thing you did over spring break?
Yeah.
You start asking questions like that to people and getting to know them, which is what we've done in the fire service. Like I know so many weird things about all of the people I work with, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
from living with them.
Yeah.
That it's like if I were to walk up to a somebody at school pickup or at a soccer game or whatever it is, and I was like, so how are you? How you doing? What do you do?
Yeah.
Those are just boring questions. Like, what's your
But
favorite?
that's normal. That's the normal
That
question
is.
you get, right?
But what's your favorite vacation you've ever gone on?
Right.
That's a very different question.
Yeah.
That opens a lot more up. Like, how are you? I'm doing well. How's your day been going? Great. What do you do? I'm a firefighter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. You like it? I do. Great. But Steve, what's your favorite vacation you've ever been on?
Yeah. Which is the favorite vacation?
One of the top 5.
Top 5. Boy, that's a lot to think about.
Vacations?
Vacations.
Man.
I would say. So I loved spring break 2 years ago. I took the 4 kiddos, just me and 4 kiddos, and we went to 30A. I don't know if you've been to 30A
No.
yet.
Where's that?
You need to go. This is great. Like, this is a fun conversation.
See?
Yeah.
But this is how I would do that outside
good,
of
right?
the fire
Yeah.
department, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about it because it's something you really enjoy.
Yeah.
I want to listen because now I'm interested in learning.
doing it, maybe. Yeah.
But if I'm trying to make friends outside of
yeah.
the department in that
Yeah.
area, it's you got to be more intentional.
Right.
Intentionality, I guess. It's the short answer.
Yeah. Have you always had that?
Had what?
The intentionality. That's
no,
why I asked you
I'm
to
an
come
introvert.
Okay, so that's why,
Yeah.
every time I see, I'll see you at like a basketball game where like my kids are playing and yours were before or whatever. Your energy, Jason, is so it's I don't know the word for it, but you want to hang out with you, like
Sure.
There's something about you that I'm like, even Ellen Grace, like years ago, I remember talking to her when we were just starting to talk, and she's like, I went over to the Dykstras and hung out with them, and like, they're really amazing. And I was like, she fell in love with you guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, that's cool. Like, like,
cool.
Lindsay's always been awesome.
Yeah.
Like, she's such a light and a beacon of person, but you're the same way. Like, where did that come? Like, I feel like that came like, people don't naturally come to that energy. Like,
Sure.
they can become that, or they are. But were your parents that, like, how, like?
I honestly don't know where it came from.
Okay.
I don't know where it comes from.
You know that
like,
you have that, right? Do you have?
Well, so I'm an introvert by nature.
Okay.
And I do a really good job of flexing into an extrovert individual when I need to.
Yep.
However, you know, I think you're very similar to that.
Yeah.
Like I do. It's terribly exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Which is the statement of like, yes, they are great people. Ellen Grace is the same way. Like, we should go hang out. And I'm like, that is really nice. And I would, if you want to invite them over to the pool in my environment that we can hang out, like, yes. But if you're really wanting me to get dressed up again and go out, like, just last week, the same thing. She was like, hey, like, you should, the Lark wine bar just opened. I'm here, and there's these 5 people here. You should come. And I was like, you know, babe, I've been running all day, and it's 7:00, and I just ordered myself a pizza.
Sure.
I'm like, I love you, but I'm good. Like, I know who those people are.
Sure.
I, you know, and it's always like this like, she gets, you know, she comes home just in love with the world, right, from that environment. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, like, I can handle that for an hour.
Yeah. So I guess where I would say, like, if I were to nail it down, and I may have to pull out my phone, I've got a little, I guess, why. I don't know if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek. I assume so. Start with why.
Yep.
He also did a book called Find My Why.
Yep.
And when I went through that a few years ago, I was really thinking about, like, why am I here, and why?
Okay.
And so what I came up with was, for me personally, to empower individuals to overcome adversity and achieve higher levels of self-fulfillment and happiness, so that I can challenge conventional norms, drive innovation, and elevate the quality of life for individuals, communities, and industries alike. So that's kind of my why, is to just, how can I help other people find the best in themselves? And there's so often where it's like we could be on a medical call, right? And like I've had some pretty unique, in-depth, interesting conversations with people. I was on a call once with it was a medical call for an individual that was battling with some alcohol issues, and his family was also their sister, mom, and some other family members. And I don't drink at all. I haven't drank in over a decade. And some of that is I didn't have an off switch. Like there's no off switch, right?
Yep.
And it's like, is alcohol going to make me a better or a worse individual? The answer was always worse. Typically, 9 times out of 10, it was not going to make me a better person, right?
Yeah.
There was no great reason for it. And so being able to use my life experiences and chat through some of them with family members of an individual that's struggling with something similar that I was struggling with. And it's like, it was almost like looking back in time. And I'm like, man, this kid's 20, 21, 22, however old he was. And it's like his family seeing this and seeing this struggle, and to know that there's potentially light at the end of the tunnel, to give them the resources and give them the ability to say, okay, we can help. We can get through this. Here's an example of that.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm very passionate about, not just from like that standpoint, right? That's just one example. The other example is really looking at what can you do to subjectively look at an individual's performance within the fire department and say, these are the tools that we have to measure customer focus, on problem solving ability, dealing with ambiguity, like a lot of those things, to help them become better individuals so that we can be better as a whole.
Yeah. So where did that passion come from?
I don't know.
Have you always had it? Like when you were like,
and I think that's why
teens, you always wanted to help and always wanted to make other people better?
No, definitely not. I wouldn't say I'm even really a people pleaser as much. But even when I was younger, I wanted to go into the Marines just to do something that was bigger than me.
Right.
It was that. I also didn't love school, right? School wasn't my thing. So I was like, let's go into the military, do that, get out after 8 years, and I can be a helicopter. I went in to be a helicopter mechanic and get out, be a helicopter mechanic somewhere privately.
Right.
And that can be a really awesome career, lucrative career. So, I mean, like, I wanted to go in it to also serve and help other people. But while I was at Apple, I think is really probably where the biggest amount of that got developed, right?
Because do they have a culture to help you develop that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Apple was insanely focused on people development, right? We actually had leaders. They were called people leaders.
Okay.
And one of the main roles of that individual within Apple at each location was to look at the professional development and personal development within the store and within that environment and say, these are the things that we need to do on a 30, 60, 90 day basis.
Right. And
this is how we're going to go through and achieve that. So we would meet with people. Like if I had a team of 20 employees, I would meet with them, each one individually, at least once a quarter.
Okay.
To just chat through their goals, to let them know how I felt they were doing and what was expected of them.
Yeah.
From a like characteristic or a trait aspect. So we used a lot of the it's called FYI, For Your Improvement book. I believe it was written by Michael Lombardo. And the idea behind that book was, hey, let's take a large number of high performing CEOs and upper level executives and ask them what traits are most important to your highly productive people. And what they got was a list of what was originally 67 competencies. You get things from managing and measuring work to humor to problem solving to customer focus, like just a lot of characteristics and traits. They narrowed it down to 67 of the key competencies. And then that book listed all of the 67 competencies And what did a skilled version of this look like? What did an unskilled version of this look like? What did an overuse skill of this version look like? So you think about something like humor.
Right.
You can be very skilled at humor. You can be underskilled in humor. You can also use it too often in inappropriate times where it's like you may think it's a strength, but really you're overusing it.
Yep.
And then it will also give you competencies to kind of, help with developing that skill. So if you have strengths in these other competencies, you may be able to use them to help develop the other one. That's since been narrowed down even a little bit more from 67
feels
right?
overwhelming.
So the most recent version, 67's a lot.
That's a lot of competencies.
Yeah.
I don't think I might have 3.
I think you'd be surprised. But so as it got whittled down, the most recent version is into 30 something, right?
Okay.
And so now you can look at roles within your fire department or within any organization and say, these are the separate roles we have. We have real estate agent, we have broker, we have transaction coordinator. Like you can look at each role and these are the competencies which are the most important from my leadership level. If I'm the leader of this organization, what do I think are the most important skills and traits to have?
Yeah.
And then I can go through and have conversations with my people about that, like every single quarter. Yeah. And that's, I think, where most of that got developed was at Apple. So much of that was about helping people not necessarily become better employees. That was a byproduct.
Right.
But become better humans, because all of those things was going to help you in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's what I was so grateful for at Apple was they did a really good job of let's make sure that we're breeding the best humans we can, even if they leave.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather develop the crap out of someone and have them leave my team and go somewhere else and go to Microsoft, go to Google. Like that's fine.
Right.
I just want to breed better humans.
Yeah. I mean, I think of all the people that have come and gone through my organizations over the years, and you realize like, hey, like they got to a point that their success outgrew what I could provide for them. That doesn't mean that I did something wrong or they're doing something. It's just like, go. Like your success has equaled your ability to, and I could not match or give you that. Like my level was peaked, so I couldn't match where you needed to go. Great. Like, but my job was to get you to there. Right. Yeah. And then great. Like, let's go. It sounds like that's what has shifted within the department as well now, where it's like you're doing the same thing, where it's saying, it's basically saying like, let's shift this to make the best human that then fights fires, right? Or does emergencies. Yeah. But their best human form first, then they do this role, and then let's backfill it to make sure that they're still doing mentally well to keep doing that role and growing. Yeah. Right? Like
absolutely.
And I would think that would retain I mean, that is the best way to retain employees ultimately. Yeah. Like, yes, if they go on, but hopefully if they go on, they're going to another department to lead and to take all that information and help that next department grow and lead in that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because along with mental health issues, I think one of the other large issues that is facing the fire service as a whole is retention. Right? Yeah. Retention and retirement, and when is the right time to retire? And a lot of people think that, oh, you're a firefighter, you get a pension. That's all dependent based off of the city or the township that you're working in, right? So,
not always,
some of them have it, some of them don't. There's few that have any sort of pension anymore, and it's like then you start looking at like, when do I retire? Yeah. And if I didn't do a good enough job saving money, I got to keep on working, even though.
Well, and you're not paid like crazy amount of money either, right? It's not like you're saving, but it's like really how much do you make to even be able to save, right?
Yeah, average U.S. salary for a firefighter is $59,606 a year,
which is like
that's not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 1 or 2 kids, that's poverty level almost, right? Yeah. It's not poverty, but I mean,
sure.
You're not going to get much for that.
It's hard on a single income. And I mean, granted, like you can go through and that's as a firefighter, right? So in our
starting.
Yeah, right? In our department, you've got firefighters, equipment operators, lieutenants, district chiefs. We've got an assistant chief, and then we've got our chief, right? So it's like you've got multiple levels, and as you're working your way up, you can make significantly more money. Yeah. Once again, it's like, and even for an EMT, the people that ride in an ambulance along with a paramedic, their average U.S. salary is $42,000.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are saving your life.
Yeah. And
when you call 911 at 2
paid at all.
a.m.
Yeah.
And that's shocking. They're like,
they're
not doctors, but
Why do you think that is? Because I think of that as, you're a police officer as well, but you always hear that with teachers. Like, it seems like the professions that matter the most are paid the least sometimes, right? Or it's like, yeah, I want you to do well investing my money, or we being real estate agents, I want you to do well to sell this house, and I get paid very well to sell or help somebody buy, sometimes too well, in my opinion, right? If I look at my hourly rate, it's like, holy cow, like that's crazy.
But would you think that you're one of the top 5% in terms of knowledge, skill level, ability to go through and do those things?
Yeah, but I don't think a teacher, the teacher doesn't have that same.
Correct. Yes.
Right? Like I don't feel guilty about the paycheck that I receive. I've put in the work, the time, the effort to receive it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with any profession making that, but it's I guess the point I'm trying to make is that those people that are skilled at firefighting or teaching necessarily don't get the reward that entrepreneurship of real estate gets, or whatever. Like, is that talked about within your department, or no? It's just like that's just what we get paid.
I think it's almost expected, right? Like, no one's going into firefighting thinking they're going to make $500,000 a year,
right?
It's not. We're not delusional,
right?
Like we understand that, because to me, I look at it and it's like, I get to do all of these sweet things.
Yeah,
I get to fulfill my why on a daily basis whenever I'm working. Like that's getting fulfilled. So it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And then I look at success, and what is success really? I think success, and there's a quote from Michelle Obama. I'd have to look it back up around success. Something along the lines of success isn't about how much money you make. It's about how happy your life is, or something along those lines, right? Like, and when you're gauging success, so often people go to, oh, they're really successful, which translates to, oh, they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. And if I look at some of the most successful people I know, they make they don't make a ton of money.
Yeah.
But that's because they're internally fulfilled and they're doing great work.
Yeah. 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 We're, so I'm in a men's book group, and we just had a book club on Monday, which is really just the
what
same.
Book?
It was the five types of your worth.
Okay.
I don't remember the author. But it basically was breaking down, your mental worth, your physical worth, your financial, like each of almost the circle again, right? And trying to divide each of those things. And it was interesting to talk through that in the book club, because a lot of us are, most are real estate agents. It's actually a group of 5-star guys, just randomly happened that way. And so we were talking about this balancing act of worth in that the profession that you're in might not necessarily be about, like, we were taught, I feel like our generation was taught differently than our parents' generation. Yeah. And so we're talking a lot about, like, the parents' generation just worked to work, right?
Yeah.
They did the job to pay the bills, to then hopefully have enough money to do other things, right? To do the kids' sports or whatever that might be. Or a lot of our dads just worked to work because that was what they were taught to do, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, have been taught more of this why stuff, or like find your passion in work. Like that's a constant conversation around like, oh man, this is my passion. And then, so it's interesting around the table to have that discussion of like, is real estate sales really your passion, right? Like, or, you've been doing it for 10 years or me 18 years. It might not be my passion, but it allows me to do, and that's where the book really like was pointing on, right? Was like, wait a minute, like, because of this, I can help people, which I enjoy doing. I like negotiating. I like these things, but is it my passion? No, not necessarily, but it allows me, which I say right now, like my passion is to be in my $300 Yeti chair at every sporting event I can be. Like that is like,
it's a great passion.
I love it. Right. Yeah. It's like, I have the gear to be warm. I would like, Monday when it was like 25-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
I was
a little
like,
sketchy.
I was okay with them canceling the baseball game, but there was something in my soul. It was like, I don't want them to cancel, right? Because I want to be there, and I'm supposed to be quiet because I talk too much when he's catching, and you got to be quiet, Dad. I'm like, okay. But
don't yell at the ump, Dad.
But I think that's an interesting conversation on Monday around this idea of like, hey, like it doesn't necessarily, your career doesn't necessarily have to be your passion. It has to be fulfilling in a way that you don't dread it, right?
Sure.
But ultimately, hopefully, it's what gets you to be able to do the life that is your passion, right? And not having to be like, oh man, like picking one or the other. Which was an interesting conversation to have around the table of like, okay, like how do we do that a little bit more and not get into like, oh, like, is this my passion or not, right?
Yeah.
Because that was part of the podcast when I came and hung out with Wally for the first time. Was I was struggling. I was struggling to find something creative and fun.
Sure.
And it was like, okay. And
Did you? Did you? Is this it?
I love this.
Done.
Yeah, I love it. Right. So, and then it makes, when you're doing the fun, creative thing that is exciting for you, I think it allows all the other things to be fun and exciting because it allows you to do that item. Right. So it's like, oh, like now real estate again is like new and fun to me.
Sure.
And it hasn't been for years. And most people know that, right? Like I want to sell real estate. It provides for my family and everything. But now it's like, oh, like a deal. This is fun. Let me go do it because it provides then energy and money to pay Wally, right? And to hang out with you. And
Wally wants to keep selling too.
Yeah. Wally's cranking. He's doing well. But he loves it, right? And so I guess where I'm going with that is like, not always is it that thing that you're doing for the money that is the passion, right? It's lucky if you can find one that does both. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we're in our society and in the gurus that are out there, they preach that like your work should be your passion instead of your work just sometimes need to be work. Yeah. And let it be
work's
that.
Work, right?
Yeah.
Like as passionate as I am about being a firefighter, right? And having that. Yeah. I'll tell you, every single time we go to work, you'd be amazed at how many toilets a fire station has. Yeah. But there's a lot. And typically they get cleaned every single day. Yeah. Right? Like there's not a cleaner place than a fire station, right? We're cleaning daily. We do a lot of checks on a lot of trucks. There's a lot of medical reports that we're writing, a lot of reports after fires that we're doing. There's a lot of stuff that like you don't want to do. Yeah. But you have to do it. Yeah. To have that passionate side, right? Yeah. And that's just part of life. Like you can't constantly have fun and get paid for. Some people can, called influencers.
Yeah, but I don't
even
know
some
if
of them,
it is.
right?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if it is.
It's like you can't constantly just always have fun. Yeah. And get paid.
Yeah, I can't. Like if you're a travel influencer, like
that's work.
When you're there, it might be fun, but like
on the phone, it may look like fun,
but it's not. Like and I think that's. I definitely have had a lot of those comments lately of like it's great to see you enjoying things, but also thanks for being real, right? Because it's so hard with social media not to, if you're watching it, not to think like, oh man, like I'm missing out, like that looks fun or that looks fun, right? And it's like, yeah, but you have to make those choices, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just have to do the work. Yeah. And I think that's a struggle. That's a struggle a little bit for our generations of sort of saying like, wait a minute, like the work doesn't have to be your passion. Yeah. It has, I think you do have to be fulfilled. And like, I don't believe in just going to work and not being able to be happy. Yeah, right. I would agree. I think that'd be miserable to go to work and feel like just horrible about what you do. Yeah. And sometimes you have to do that, right? There are times in life where you just have to work, right? You have to make money and that's what you do. Yep. But I would hope that people can, but it doesn't have to be this big passion, right? And I think the why stuff is great, but I think some of that Simon Sinek why stuff has hurt some emotion in that people like then feel like they have to live the why, and if they're not living the why at that very moment, then like their life is not fulfilled. And it's
Correct.
like, okay, like I get that, but like the why can be something that you're striving for. It doesn't have to be immediate, right?
Yeah.
And
You've got to be realistic.
you got to be realistic.
Like, tailor your expectations.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would always love to be helping people.
Yeah.
But I'm not Mother Teresa.
Right.
She was unique.
Yeah. And you couldn't really, I mean, you couldn't be on calls all day long, right? Like you would burn yourself out, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to clean the toilet once in a while because like you need the mundane task to be able to then be 100% when you're on that call, right?
Absolutely.
Do they probably teach that, right? I mean, some of that is like I always look at the firefighter and think, man, they are playing with their trucks like all the time. Like, are they always broken or are they like, they're always pulled out and they're always messing with them? And I'm like, do they break that much or do they just?
I mean, some of them.
So, but
the older ones do sometimes.
But I think it's part of that like take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of the ethos, I would assume, as the department is like, hey, like honor what you're given. We've been given this truck by the people of our district, right?
Yeah.
Of Plainfield Township. They spent $1 million on these trucks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're expensive trucks, I think.
They're not cheap. We have to be good stewards of that money for our community.
Right.
So that when they need us, we can show up and we're prepared and we know that our stuff works. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, we do truck checks daily and weekly.
Yeah.
So every shift, the beginning of a shift, we're checking the key essentials, right? Like all the medical equipment. We're making sure things aren't expired, all of our medical equipment. And you'd be like, wow, man, every single shift, every single day, it seems like it's like, and we actually have a system, an app that we use to go through and keep track of all of the expiration dates. And even though we have that, we're still checking it every single day.
Yeah.
Just because you don't want me showing up when you're having an anaphylactic reaction and be like, oh shoot, my epinephrine's expired. Can't be giving you that.
Yeah.
Right. So like we're still checking it every single day because you never know what happens.
Yeah.
But even each truck gets a very in-depth weekly check, right? So we go through and check every single cabinet, every single component that's supposed to be in that cabinet. We start all of the chainsaws, the fans, we clean the ladders, we clean all of the stuff on the truck just to make sure that it's working and functioning properly. Should we have an event, we know it's there and it's ready
to work.
Yeah.
So transition for me into home life. You've got 2 wonderful daughters, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
How old are they?
10 and 8.
10 and 8.
10 and 8.
They're busy.
Yeah, they are.
So you've transitioned into part-time firefighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can do a little bit more at home or supporting Lindsay, I'm assuming some too, right?
Yeah.
How did that mentally change? How did you choose that world of saying like, hey, like I'm going to go back part-time, even though this full-time is fulfilling my why and my like, how did you adjust to that?
So I looked at, I really had to look at values, right? And like, if I were to identify my top 10 values out of everything, and you write your values down, and then you start narrowing that down to your top 1 or 2. And once I got down to the top couple, family was up there, right? And it's like work was below that and family was above that. Lindsay and I are fortunate enough where we spent the first 20 years of our professional careers busting our butts to get to a point where we're at, and for me to be able to make that decision, right? Financially, from a financial standpoint, hey, let's jump down from a full-time providing healthcare and health benefits to our entire family, decent money, right? Like not revolutionary and mind-blowing,
but
decent, decent, steady money.
Yeah. Especially when she's in a commission-based job, right? You never know.
Let's pull back on that so that I can make sure I'm not missing the soccer practice, or so that I can commit to dropping them off and picking them up from school should I need to. Lindsay does a ton of that, and she's phenomenal at juggling, working 60 hours a week, and she'll work until 10:30 or whatever at night because she was picking the kids up from school at 3:30 and hanging out with them until 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
The real estate profession allows for that to happen, right? So for me, really what it boiled down to was we have the ability to do that financially.
Right.
And my values of what I truly want and value would support that decision.
Right.
So it wasn't Lindsay wants or I want. It was
it didn't come out of an argument. It was
no,
it was
no,
like
not at
hey,
all.
let's evaluate.
Yeah,
life
it was
right
100% my decision. She was supportive with whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you know, I certainly knew that one was going to have a different impact on her.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I'm gone 3 out of 9 days,
Yep.
24 hours,
but not just 3, because you just explained the nights,
correct.
right? Because really you're gone. Because the next day you're not really worth a whole lot if you've had 3 calls overnight.
Yeah. Well, and other times where it's like, oh yeah, you had 1 call and it was at 3 p.m.
Right.
That whole shift. And I mean, that wasn't typically the case, but we'd get, 1 or 2 calls throughout the night. And I felt like I did a pretty good job of still being present the days after.
Yeah.
Now my mood may have been more easily agitated by the littlest thing, right? Like something small could set me off, whereas you go through and you get the normal amount of sleep that you're supposed to, and not be on edge all night because you're not actually sleeping because you're worried about not waking up for an alarm.
Yeah.
Right. But no, I think at the end of the day, it was values. And then when I looked at what it was potentially doing to Lindsay and how I value my family, Lindsay's juggling a very stressful and successful personally and financially career. For me to then take 24 hours out of a day and say, hey, today you have to manage everything by yourself.
Yeah.
That's really hard on the family too.
Yeah.
Right. And then the kids also, they're like, okay, dad's working, and they get used to it, and they were used to it.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's really difficult for them too. Right. Like, and I had a coworker at one point where he was like, so we were talking about this exact same thing. And he said, one of my kids said to me the other day, oh, is mom, you're going to go to sleep in mom's bed tonight? And he's like, and it hit me.
Mom's bed. Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even our bed. It wasn't even our bedroom.
Yeah.
He was calling it mom's room.
Yeah.
Mom's bed, because he was working full time as a firefighter. Right.
Right.
Like, and so even just the psychological impact of a child, the unknown psychological impact of a child, like, who knows?
Yeah. And the kid didn't mean it as a negative thing.
No, not at all.
It just
no.
was like,
it wasn't like
this is the perceived. This is the perceived. But it's
it was an innocent 6-year-old comment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So was that when you made that decision, was it pretty freeing right away, or was it a mental struggle to not have the adrenaline dump of going to another call?
Oh, I mean, it's still a mental struggle. Like, I loved every second of it. I would love to be able to go back into that full time, but I also wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it may be a different scenario when my kids are in high school.
Yeah.
Or my kids are graduating out of high school.
Yeah.
But then I start looking at I need to maintain my physical ability in order to do the things that I would need to do at a high level at that point to even be considered for a full-time position.
Right.
Right. So it's not now what?
Yeah. So what do you fill that void with?
Man, that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
I don't know that I do.
Okay. You haven't found
I haven't found that, like, adrenaline. So I found some things that I'm passionate about.
Okay. So what are those?
Photography.
Okay.
I enjoy photography.
Yeah.
It's something that I got into a long time ago when I was at Apple.
Yeah.
And then the iPhone came out. And as the iPhone got a little bit better, I was like, I don't need this camera anymore because I've got one in my pocket with me all the time. But I've rediscovered that passion and that love. And it's something that, like, all of the sports events and the random travel stuff that we do, I find a lot of fulfillment, and it's not adrenaline fulfillment. Right. But the older I get, the more I'm just like, do I need that adrenaline stuff?
Right.
Like, it's fun. I can also just go see how fast I can go through the S-curve. Just kidding.
Yeah, don't get pulled over doing that. I know your badge can get you out of stuff, but
no, I don't even carry a badge. I wouldn't. I'm not. Yeah.
What? So it's missed, but you've just filled it with passion items?
I think so.
Okay.
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I miss it. I still get it when we go.
Right.
Right. Like I still go to work.
Right.
So I have it. It's just not as much. Right. It's not as often.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I didn't have it at all, it'd be a bigger problem.
Yeah. Just
having
to
it
cut
part
it out.
time.
Yeah.
I think it still
gives you
still
enough.
gives me that.
What does part time look like? Just once a week?
Once
you're going
a week,
in
once
for
every
the
other
24-hour shift? Okay.
Yep.
And you're just filling in when needed, or you're picking and choosing when you
picking and choosing. Like, so we've got 2 full-timers at each station all the time.
Okay.
And then along with that, we've got 1 part-timer at a station at each station all the time.
Okay.
So we've got a handful of part-time employees, and they pick up shifts as they're available.
Okay.
Right? So.
Okay. And that works. Yeah. So I think of that. I mean, men's book club has been awesome. So if ever you want to drop in, let me know. But it's been great because it's amazing to talk about with similar age group men these ideas of passion and then adrenaline and one guy right now is really into sourdough baking bread.
Okay.
And like I guess it's out of this world. He hasn't shared any with me, but he's still he says that it's like the best. So I'm actually calling him out a little bit. That
you should. Next book club, if there's
no sourdough bread with some spread that we all should be eating while we're drinking our wine, that's a problem, right? Because then it's just not true, right? It's just not true. But ultimately, we were talking about these ideas of these passions, and then how we balance that passion to just be all in on that next thing because it fulfills that like need or bucket, and then because we're losing something else, right?
Sure.
And I even felt that with podcasting the first couple. I was like, this is an adrenaline spike for me. Like, let's go. Like, And I think one time Wally and I did like 3 or 4 in a row, and I was done. But I mean, it was a lot, right? And so, and actually, the last month I haven't recorded any, and now I have 2 today. But I had to even pull that back a little bit to be like, wait a minute, like that's not your career, right?
Sure.
Like that's fun, you enjoy it, but how do you balance that like adrenaline dump to be like, no, like don't get into that, right? Like don't fulfill yourself there. Because that's not necessarily a healthy thing. So it's good to hear like that you're still trying to find that, right? To balance that out. Is there other passions that you're really into that other than the photography?
Traveling. I mean, our family loves traveling.
Yeah.
We like to go fun new places.
Yeah.
Find new stuff.
Yeah.
See new things.
30A is awesome. So I need to
30A.
You need to go check it out. Yeah. It's becoming popular now. I think most people are starting to find it. I saw a lot of friends down there for spring break this year. But it's have you ever watched the movie The Truman Show?
Yeah.
That was recorded there. That little community is there along 30A, and it's basically a stretch of road, and I think it's like 10 or 12 mile road, and you can only go 25 miles an hour all the way down it, and it runs along the Gulf Coast.
That's pretty cool.
And no building is more than 3 stories. Like it's all like just this sort of like old school Florida thing, and the beaches are pretty. But you pretty much just ride a golf cart around.
Okay.
And you rent.
Kids love that.
Yeah, you rent an Airbnb and you just drive the golf cart around to all these. And there's I don't know 5 or 6 really cool little communities around there where there's all the shops and the coffee shops, and you're beach bumming, and just it's a great trip. So like so you'll look into that one. It's worth going to, and it's not a bad. I like to drive.
Okay.
So you guys can fly, but I think it was like an 18-hour drive or something.
It's not too bad.
It wasn't. I mean, it was a normal Florida drive.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't bad. But yeah, it's one of those.
Last time we drove down there, I found it easiest to just drive through the night while the kids sleep.
Well, yeah, you're used to that probably, right?
So like we'll leave at 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Drive through the night.
Yeah.
Kids will wake up, and we'll have breakfast in Georgia somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's finish it up. Yeah. So we, it's fun. I love the drive. But technology makes the drive easier now. Right. And I'm like, like play your video game or whatever. I don't care.
Just please don't yell and scream.
Just don't yell and scream.
Yeah.
You know, we'll stop for potty breaks every couple hours if we need to, but Dad's driving. You guys do whatever you need to back there, and we're good. So it becomes fun. It's a different world now, though. So this book had a lot of graphs about time spent.
Sure.
And your worth, and really focusing on time spent. And so it showed the graph of time with family, and then time with partner, time at work. And so you're in, which is what you've made the decision, you're in that time of family being like, I don't know what it is, like 3 hours a day on average, right?
Yeah.
But by the time they're like 16, that goes down to like 1.2 or something like it was just like.
And that's part of the reason I made that decision.
Right. It just completely drops off.
They want to hang out with me.
Yeah.
They still want to hang out with me.
Well, and that's the book talked a lot about that like you're the most important person to the child until they're 12.
Yeah.
And I was like, 12? Yeah. I see that of my boys. Like I'm trying to interact with them now that they're 16 differently, right? Or it's like I'm going to their sporting events and I'm sharing songs with one kid because that's what he's passionate about, right? And I'm like, this is a banger, and I'm like, that was a good song, but I'm trying.
That's straight fire, Dad.
I'm like, he wants to go to concerts, and I'm like, I'm not a big concert person, but yes, we're gonna go to concerts, right? Like, I'm not in a country, but for some reason, Zach Bryan is my favorite artist now.
Nice. Yeah.
So you change, right, as they're changing. But when I thought like, man, 12, like I've got, the other younger 5 that are just hitting 12. And I'm like, like we're doing spring break and this is still important to them. But boy, I don't have much left.
No. And then you start thinking about like how many summer breaks you have left.
Yeah.
How many spring breaks you have left. And Lindsay hates it when I do this. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah.
But like how many Christmases you have left. How many of those things you have left, and to be working at the fire department when it's Christmas, like that's different, right?
Yeah.
And most of those families will either celebrate Christmas the day before or the day after, or whatever. And that's the lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that one thing that I've heard from you a lot is getting into a point of being able to choose that world of what is my number one, number two, and that the why statement can be fulfilling within the children, right? It doesn't have to, like, I always think like, oh man, like I need to touch all these people to be like to have a big legacy, and it's like no, really my legacy is like that 16-year-old right now, and like I don't know what's going to happen with them in 2 years when they graduate and move out, and where does that go? Like, but whatever they do really is my legacy, not necessarily like I raised them. So I could do a lot of stuff in the world, but if they just bomb it, like did any of the stuff I do actually equal something great?
Yeah. Like I recently reading Mel Robbins' Let Them.
Yeah.
Phenomenal book.
Okay.
Highly recommend for book club if you need a new one. Need another suggestion.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Phil Knight one next.
Okay.
The Nike guy.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that I don't know if you've read that one or not.
I have not.
But so that's the next one.
So I had a bookmark that I wrote based off of it was based on the premise of something I read in that book, but it was the thought of I'm living right now as a ghost for my future child. I need to be the best ghost memory that I can be for my kids. Because when I think about my parents, the ages that they are right now, I have I have some memories, right? Some core memories that you could say from the age of wherever, 5, 6, 7, up and through high school. I don't remember all of it, right? But I do remember some of it. And I know at the end of the day, like, I'm living to be a ghost for my kids. I need to be the best ghost that I can be for them.
Explain that ghost. Like,
so
what do you mean by that?
As they look back on their life when they're my age, or if I die at some point, which I'm going to,
right?
That memory that they're left with, that ghost of a memory, is going to be what they have left of me.
Yeah.
So it's how do they remember me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do they remember who I was?
Yeah.
And how do they remember the time that we spent?
Yeah. Yeah. And we were just talking, man, book clubs is pretty great, I guess, because we were just talking about the same thing. Because we were talking about like stuff you leave for your kids, right? And one of the guys was talking about that he actually has 3 children, and so he's bought 3 really nice watches that he wants to give them. And I'm like, that's cool. Do you actually wear them? Because he didn't have one on. You know? And he's like, yeah, I do wear them on a regular basis. I'm like, I don't know. For me, I would rather have my dad's like beat up briefcase that I saw him wearing every day to work, right? And there was nothing wrong with him wanting these watches, and that, like, if that's fulfilled, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Lindsay's saying hi, like, how's it going?
Hey, Lindsay.
So, or is she trying to put you to work? Like, where are you?
Probably.
Hey, both.
I need a comp. Got to comp this one out, please.
So I think that's a really different way to think about it. The ghost story of like, okay, what are the, my mom has passed away, and those ghost stories are not really good stories for me, right? Like the stories and the memories I have of, early on, before 5 were some good memories. And I remember, my mom was healthy. Then she became unhealthy, mentally. And so, like what things, I'm divorced, those are going to be core memories for my children. Right. And so, but I want them to remember 30A, right. And riding down, with a golf cart. Right. And so I want them to remember Dad's Yeti chair. Right. Like, so how do you, but that's,
and see, I think for me, so I think it's less about the remembering the Grand Canyon, or remembering the time we went camping on the top of the Forerunner, right? Like it's less about that, and it's more about remembering the hug and the feeling of embrace and the feeling of genuine, like, Dad cares. Dad cared. Dad loved because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And like the traits that I exhibit on a daily basis. And that's something that's forced me to look at my life and how am I living my life, and how can I become a better person for the people around me, not just give them better experiences or give them the watch or give them the briefcase, but give them when you say your mom had some mental health stuff going on, how can I prevent that? Because I think we all have some mental health stuff going on.
Right.
But it's also something to be able to talk through some of that with your kids. And I will apologize to my kids when I do something wrong. Like, hey, like I shouldn't have done that, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, we talked about that, and I said the words I think of a lot as humble grace, right, with my kids, especially the 16-year-olds. It's like, how do I show humility and humbleness to say, Dad doesn't have it figured out. I've never done this life before. This is the first time I've done this, right? Raising kids. And so I personally have messed up in these things, and I'm really sorry that might have affected you. Right. Yeah. And also, I'm going to give you a lot of grace, because this is the first time that you've ever had to drive a car. Right. This is the first time you're
going to scare the crap out of me.
Yeah. Right? But like, hey, like, you're sending some pictures maybe you shouldn't send to your girlfriend. Yeah. And that's a new thing. That's a new world that you have to deal with, that I didn't have to deal with when I was your age. And so, wow. Okay. Like we're going to have some correction, and we're going to have some accountability, but I'm also going to like love you and show you grace. Yeah. Like that is core. Right. Yeah. So we talked a lot about that idea of just how as a parent, and especially the male figure, father figure in the household, how do I show humility of myself while also showing grace to them for their issues, so that then hopefully they can learn that humility and grace for others. Right. Okay, we're at that time. That's why Lindsay's calling. It's 9. She called you at 9:31, which is like you were supposed to be done.
Was I?
Well, no, I mean,
I don't know.
We did an hour and a half is usually what we do. So we're gonna wrap it up. But that's what Lindsay's like. Okay, he's had enough time with Steve.
You just have to cut at least 5 minutes of this rambling and coherent stuff out, and we'll be fine.
No, it's good. But you've got a lot of bullet points here, and I know most of it was about firefighters, but when you came, or when I invited you and you looked at a couple of them, was there something that you wanted to talk about or say that you haven't said so far?
Man, I don't think so. I think the mental health stuff was probably some of the biggest. Like I don't think people really realize that over 80% of firefighters have experienced something where it's affecting their mental health. The other thing I think that I don't know that people really recognize is the stuff that we're packing into our houses versus what we were packing into our houses in the 70s and 80s. They're made out of very different materials, right? So when we look at petroleum based goods, polyesters, that type of stuff versus cotton, wool. If I had a couch in 1980 that was stuffed with cotton in the cushions, that burns at a very different temperature with a very different smoke color than 99% of the couches that we're getting today. Right. And so cancer is a very, very, very real possibility for anybody in the fire service. Cancer, I had a stat on here somewhere. Firefighters are 2 times more likely to develop melanoma and other skin cancers than the general population. And most of that is just based off of, we're exposed to over 200 different known carcinogens in smoke during a typical structure fire. Right. So when we're going into a house that has that polyester, the petroleum based cushions burning in that couch. That smoke is hot.
The foam.
Yeah, the foams, the comforters that you've got, most of the clothing that we have, it's all plastic, right?
Yeah.
That smoke is black, it's super thick, it's super hot. The fires are hotter than they ever were before. And it's more dangerous, right? So now we've got to adjust with different decon. Right. So as soon as we get out of a fire, we've got different decon procedures for washing us off before we even take our masks off.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, just put another pack on and go back in there.
Go. Yeah.
I mean, in the 70s and 80s, they're like, let's see how much smoke we can breatth.
Right.
And not even go in there with a pack on, right? Or up. When I say pack, I mean a self-contained breathing apparatus on air. So that's one of the things.
What do you think? So just to wrap it up, us citizens, right? I feel like there is a consistent pressure against first responders, not just you, but the police department and everything, that the pressure that you're on now because of cameras and recording everything you do. How do we as the public support our first responders better? Like when I'm just trying to get to work and you're blocking a lane or two, how do I, I think of us as citizens have a role to make your life better, right?
Sure.
Your job is to service us in our greatest need, but ultimately that person's need, should trump all the other cars behind us. But how do we balance that? Or how do we support you guys as first responders?
Yeah, I mean, I would say generally speaking, I feel very supported, like as a whole. There are things that I think we can do better, and we can always do better. But I do think that we are generally supported very well by our community, within our community at Plainfield. Now, there's certainly things like I would tell everybody to sleep with their bedroom doors closed. That's one of the most important things, especially if you have children. Yeah. Look up close before you doze. Okay. UL listed, there's a whole video on, here's a house on fire where the bedroom doors are open. Here's a house on fire where the bedroom doors are closed. It's insane at how much a bedroom can survive a fire in the living room, the kitchen, the garage, wherever else it is, if that bedroom door is closed. Half of that house could be completely burnt down, and that bedroom can be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Or give you the time to get into it.
Give us the time to be able to get that room searched and whoever's in there, get them out. Yeah. Right. So that's one. Texting and driving, playing on your phone and driving. Yeah. It's insane. Right. So we're in a fire truck. We get to ride up high. As a firefighter, we ride in the back seats, and I get to see a lot. And it's surprising at how many people still use their phones while they're driving. Yeah. And there's nothing fun about going to a call where somebody dies in a car accident because they were texting and driving.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun.
Is that a pretty normal now still? Like when you're rolling up,
there's not like the way to prove
know,
it,
but
right?
you can,
but
if
someone's driving down West River,
yeah,
and they run into the back of a UPS truck that was parked on the side making a delivery to a house on West River with its 4-ways on, I don't know how you weren't paying attention enough going 60 miles an hour down a busy road.
Yeah.
And there was a vehicle stopped on the side with its hazards on. I don't know how you didn't see that if you were paying attention to the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate for your family.
Yeah.
It's more unfortunate for your family than it is for me or for any of my peers, right? So like there's that.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially as I start thinking about my kids driving, and they're 8 and 10, right? So they're a ways away from it.
Right.
But as I think about that, I'm like, man, I don't know how I get this through to to them. And I'm not even worried about them necessarily as I am the person that they're riding with, right? Their friends, the kids that they're riding with, whoever it is that they're dating when they're 18, 19, 20, or 16, or however old they are when that starts. I'm just pay attention to the road.
Yeah.
That's it. Because I'm on the side of the road often.
Yeah.
Don't hit me, please.
Which is a thing, right? That's why you guys got those big bumper trucks now, I feel like, at most of the places,
we wear safety traffic vests. And they've experimented with different colored lights to see which ones
wake you up enough.
Yes. Because they found that the general public's just like, they ignore certain color of flashing lights. So we've started to play around with that.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And hanging out. So this was fun. Jason Dykstra, firefighter extraordinaire, husband and father of 2. Thank you for hanging out on I'm Just Steve, the podcast. We're out.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm Just Steve.